Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibuyers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Day one of the Kouri Richins trial. She is on trial for the murder of her husband, Kouri Richins, who died of a fentanyl overdose. This is one we've been waiting on for a long time. Let's jump straight into openings. For the state, Kouri's boyfriend texts her an image of two people kissing, captioned, "Love you." Kouri replies, "Love you." The boys go to bed. Kouri makes Eric a drink and brings it to the bedroom. She departs the bedroom and returns at 3 a.m. She feels him cold and nudges him, but he doesn't respond. He's stiff and his mouth is wide open. At 3:06, Kouri unlocks her cell phone and travels 243 feet beginning at 3:08 a.m. She unlocks her phone at 3:10, 3:15, and twice at 3:19. At 3:21, she unlocks her phone and calls 911. Eric is pronounced dead at 3:58 a.m. on March 4th. They think he had been dead for a while. 2 weeks before murdering Eric, Kouri attempted to murder him. And 2 weeks before that, by fraud and forgery, she took out a life insurance policy on Eric's life. 2 weeks after his death, she submitted a fraudulent claim on another life insurance policy. She murdered him for his money and to get a fresh start at life. But more than anything, she wanted his money to elevate her status. She owned a house flipping business and presented herself as remarkably successful. But the evidence will show that on the day Eric died, Kouri owed over $4.5 million to 20 different lenders with no ability to service the debt. Her bank accounts and credit all exhausted. She had taken out new loans, including payday loans, but her credit was drying up. In the 5 months before Eric's death, Kouri overdrafted over 200 transactions totaling over $300,000. On the day he died, Kouri was scheduled to close on an unfinished mansion and take on an additional $3.2 million in debt. She couldn't service that debt or rehab it or hold on to it long enough to sell it. Eric's estate was worth over $4 million the day he died, and Kouri believed she would inherit it all. His $2 million in the stonemasonry business, which a prenup prevented her from getting in the event of a divorce, but could get it all if he died. The $1 million home they lived in, Eric owned separately from her and thought she would benefit $2 million on his life, including the $100,000 policy she took out just a few weeks before he died. Her fresh start at life is motive. It overlaps with her money motive, but she needed that money for her fresh start. Kouri was chronically unhappy in her marriage. She consulted with a divorce attorney leading up to Eric's death. 3 months before his death, she booked a $5,000 4-night all-inclusive vacation for her and her boyfriend in the Caribbean. They were to check in the month after Eric died. 15 days before his death, Kouri texted her boyfriend, "If I were divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, you would? I just want to lay on the couch and cuddle you and watch a murder documentary and snuggle." 5 days after the attempted murder and 11 days before the murder, she texts her boyfriend Josh, "Babe, I miss you. I want you today, every day. Not just sexually, but physically, mentally, every day when I wake up. I do want a future together, figuring out life together. If he could just go away and you could be here, life would be so perfect. I love you. I don't know what my deal is today." 1 week before the murder, Kouri texted her boyfriend, "I had a crazy dream. You quit your job. I divorce and come up with millions and millions. We buy Midway, live in the guest house, and rent out the huge house as an event center. $15,000 a day like they charge down the road. Maybe $12,000 to stay competitive. Hang out every day together, raise some kids, and have a farm. Deal?" 2 weeks after Eric's death, Kouri texted Josh a link to the Secrets St. Martin Resort and asks, "Are we there yet?" 1 month and 5 days after his death, Kouri texted, "I think I want you to be my husband one day." Carmen Lauber was a housekeeper who cleaned Kouri's house and someone Kouri had known for 9 years. Kouri knew Carmen had a criminal history with drugs, and on February 11th, 2022, 3 days before the attempted murder, Carmen, at Kouri's request, purchased illicit pills from a street dealer who was a friend of a friend, and Carmen gave those pills to Kouri. That dealer's name is Robert Crozier. 3 days later, on Valentine's Day, Kouri bought a sandwich from a diner and left it for Eric. Then she left to meet up with her boyfriend an hour away. At 11:33, Eric texted Kouri, "Gonna lay down a bit. If I don't get better, I'm gonna head to the hospital soon." Then activity ceased on his cell phone for 90 minutes during a busy workday. When Eric woke, he called two friends who said he seemed sad, scared, somber, and bewildered. A few days after, Kouri asked Carmen if she could get something stronger. On February 26th, 5 to 6 days before Eric's death, Carmen, at Kouri's request, bought pills from the same dealer at the same place in Draper and left them at a home Kouri was finishing up a rehab on. Those pills contained fentanyl, which was his cause of death. Fentanyl poisoning, 7 times the lethal amount and more in his stomach. Kouri texted a friend that her and Eric were both working from home that day. Eric didn't break out in hives. He didn't use an EpiPen. He just said his stomach hurt. But Kouri was an hour away with her boyfriend. The morning of his death, Kouri wrote in a notebook that she went in the room at 3:20 a.m. and nudged Eric, but nothing happened. And she called 911. But she first grabbed her phone at 3:06 a.m. and delayed calling 911 for at least 15 minutes. Kouri had a guilty conscience. The morning Eric died, his family came over, and Kouri said she couldn't face her children or Eric's dad, and she didn't speak with him. A few days after his death, Kouri asked her boyfriend if he had ever killed anyone in Iraq. When he responded, she asked, "How does that make you feel?" A cover-up and guilty conscious text from her phone 2 months leading up to and a week after Eric's death have all been deleted. But on her new phone, there were internet searches. Can cops uncover deleted iPhone messages? How to completely wipe an iPhone remotely. How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely. April 13th, 2022, 5 weeks after Eric's death, detectives informed Kouri the autopsy and toxicology showed he died of fentanyl poisoning. After that, searches on her phone include, if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? Can cops force you to do a lie detector? And she searched for luxury prisons for the rich. Almost a year after his death, Kouri knew police were investigating her. She published a children's book on how to deal with the loss of a parent. She promoted that on local TV and radio. At 8:30 in the morning on the day Eric died, the medical examiner places Eric's body in a body bag and they wheel him out of his home for the last time. Their boys were upstairs with their uncle. Kouri hadn't told them their dad was dead and she wouldn't for a few hours. But on her phone, these 3 images are accessed. Now, they don't show what photos she accessed on the screen. I'm trying to find out. I do have a couple of contacts in the courtroom. When I find out, I'll put it on a later episode today. But it was time for the defense to give their openings, and they play the 911 call, which we are going to listen to now.
911, what's the address of the emergency? My husband's not breathing. He's cold. Okay, what's the address? Okay, what's the good phone number in case it got disconnected? 671 4987. Okay, it's going to be in Francis. Okay, tell me exactly what happened. I don't know. I was sleeping with my kid. Okay, I can't understand you. I need you to take a deep breath. What's going on? I don't know. I was sleeping in with my kids. I just came in the bed, did our bed, and I turned over. And I think he's cold. He's just cold. Who's cold? My husband. I keep the light off him. And he's not breathing? He's not breathing? I need you to confirm it for me. Is he not breathing? No. Okay, can you do CPR? No, I don't know how. You don't know? I'm going to tell you how to. Are you willing to do CPR? Yeah. Okay.
After the call finishes, the defense says that is the sounds of a wife becoming a widow. 6.5 hours before that call, Eric and Kouri were in the same bedroom celebrating. because she was about to close on the biggest real estate deal she'd ever done, the Midway Mansion. She planned to fix it up just enough to sell it for millions more than the bargain they got it at. And Eric was a part of this. In fact, he was at the property the day he died, spreading gravel for open house. But they had other things to celebrate. Eric's business was doing great. He declared he made $750,000 in just 1 year. They had a beautiful home they were married in, and it was half Kouri's because that's how it works when you're married. Eric was a huge hunter. He went on trips all over the world. In fact, he was in Mexico 2 weeks before he died, and he was hunting. They had ATVs and snowmobiles, and they were blessed and had a lot to celebrate. Nobody can challenge Eric and Kouri adored their boys, and their marriage survived some rough times. They both contemplated divorce, but they went to marriage counseling and decided to work it out. In fact, Eric's friend will testify Eric and Kouri were the happiest he had seen them before Eric's death. On March 3rd, Eric sent Kouri excited text messages before their celebration, which said, "You want to grab lunch together today with a celebratory shot?" Kouri said she couldn't. She had other plans, but Eric was excited about the closing. When he got home that day after spreading gravel, they had dinner as a family, and Kouri's mom stopped by. She had been at the mansion with a carpenter earlier to help get it fixed up. They tucked their boys in bed at 9 and decided to have their shot. A friend had given them Moscow Mule cups, and they had a shot of a lemon drop, which was Eric's idea. They didn't finish the drinks and put those cups in the sink. At 9:30, getting ready for bed, one of the kids had night terrors, and they heard him scream out. Kouri went to sleep with her son, and Eric may have had a marijuana gummy. He loved those, and police found them all over the house. Some were in commercial bags from a dispensary, but some were in clear bags, and it's unknown where he got those. After Kouri left the room, Eric was on the phone talking to a friend named Scott. They talked at 10 p.m., and when they talked, Eric didn't sound drunk, high, or like he was on fentanyl. Kouri left her phone in the charger next to her bed when she left the room. Around 10:30, an hour after she left, her phone is unlocked. And you'll hear from Kouri's friend who said Eric was always checking her phone, and with good reason. That's the last thing we know for sure he did before he died. When he died, his Apple Watch and phone were on a charger. He was laying on his back, and it appears he went to bed and fell asleep. But there was an empty pill bottle next to the nightstand that had expired in 2016. That prescription was made out to him for pain pills. At 3 a.m., Kouri comes back into a dark bedroom, unlocks her phone. The phone moves around the house a bit, and you'll hear about that. Then it stops being active and goes back on the charger. A few minutes later, you hear the 911 call. Enough time to crawl in the bed and realize Eric is cold. He had been dead for several hours, and you'll see a photo where the blood has pooled on his back after his death, meaning he had been dead long enough for that to happen. But somewhere in 6 hours between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m., Eric died. He ingested a fatal dose of fentanyl. And after 4 years of investigating, and just last week they were back at the house, you're never going to hear how that fentanyl got inside him. His death certificate reads the manner of death is still unknown to this day. A medical examiner can declare a manner of death such as a homicide or an accidental overdose, but to this day, they've never been able to determine his manner of death. There was no fentanyl found in the bedroom the night of his death, but they didn't search for it. And guess what was sitting in the sink? The cups with liquid still in them, never taken or tested. In fact, the nanny put those in the dishwasher the next day. The day Eric died, they started interviewing Kouri over and over about what happened, and her version has never changed. Before Eric's body was taken out of the bedroom, she was told he would be taken to the morgue for an autopsy. Kouri could have staged an overdose, put pills on his stomach, but she didn't. And Eric's family could not accept that he was using drugs. They needed someone to blame. And as detectives arrived at the house that morning, Eric's sister spoke with the detectives in the driveway before anyone knew how he died and told police Kouri probably did this, and that was day one. Kouri had recently found out Eric put all assets in the trust and Katie was in charge. You'll hear that. They hired a private investigator for $100,000 to spend every waking minute digging up dirt on Kouri to implicate her in Eric's death. And after an exhaustive private investigation, He uncovered plenty of things she's not proud of. The state turned her intimate correspondences to entertainment with slides. You'll hear she tried to kill him on Valentine's Day, but he got up after a nap and took his boys to soccer like he had planned to do. So she's going to put narcotics in his food before he drives their kids to soccer? Eric even had a professional allergy doctor he saw and never brought this incident up. And one of Kouri's friends will tell you Eric laughed about this afterwards. People who use oxycodone tend to have allergic reactions. The family hired experts. They had constant communication with the prosecution until they decided to charge Kouri a year later. They're going to try to convince you she had reasons to kill Eric, but they can't show you that she did. You won't hear from anyone who can tell you what happened in those 6 hours. But Eric suffered from knee and back pain due to his work as a stonemason. He was also active. He hiked, he skied, and he hunted. And he had been diagnosed with Lyme disease. He's a man's man. He didn't want to show weakness. And he didn't share this with a lot of people. But he was so dependent on the gummies, he would smuggle those in his luggage, even out of the country through TSA. You'll hear Kouri purchase pain pills at Eric's request because she knew Carmen had access. And she asked for oxycodone. Robert Crozier sold high-strength oxys, and he will testify in 2022 that's all he sold, not fentanyl. They had to have come from somewhere else. Carmen will testify now that Kouri asked for fentanyl, but that wasn't her original story. There was no mention of it in the first interview, but she changes her testimony when she was caught with drugs and guns and was threatened to be sent to jail for a long time. Or you have to say Kouri said fentanyl, and we'll just give you a ticket. A few weeks before he died, Eric was in Mexico, and this is where fentanyl comes into this country from. You have to decide if Kouri poisoned her husband, the father of her kids, knowing she would cause those boys to feel pain every day for the rest of their life for money. Less than she was about to make on her own with one of her own deals, less than Eric would have earned over the next few years. You'll be asked if the sandwich incident was an attempted murder, and that will be an easy one for you. We're not going to dispute the facts, but we are going to dispute what the facts mean. They can mean a lot of things. They didn't show this on screen, but it looks to be maybe one of those pictures where you see two different things, and she says it's something about a witch on screen. It says the state will call her a witch, but I'm going to show you a widow. And if you can see both, that is reasonable doubt. And that was the end of the defense opening arguments. We have had one witness up and down on the stand currently. Eric's sister, Kouri Richins Benson, is up. She was the one that Eric put in charge of his estate. So I will recap that later this afternoon. And then this evening, we will finish up with the afternoon testimony. But that's it for now. Hope you guys have a good afternoon. We'll see you soon.